Well,
But
thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
definitely, definitely. I'm glad to finally see you again. We first met, for
Absolutely.
those that don't know, me and Chris first met at the Mental Health America conference back in June in Washington,
Yeah.
D.C. You actually
Hmm.
saw me speak, which was awesome. And then
Yes, it
I
was
found out
awesome.
you were, yeah, I found out you were Solomon Thomas's dad, and which was amazing, just because we were watching you guys. Like I remember watching you guys and watching you guys speak. That was a virtual conference when you guys were speaking.
Yes, it
Um,
was. Yeah.
right, and during COVID and whatnot, but to see you share your story, and then to see you in the audience watching me share my story was pretty awesome and pretty humbling.
Oh,
So, um,
that was a great experience seeing you and Janine present during that conference. That was so nice to see people live and to hear their stories. And you and Janine did a great job talking about athletes and mental health development. It was really, really great conference.
yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. It means a lot coming from you. But what we'll do now is we'll dive into the conversation. Allow me
Absolutely.
to formally introduce you. So I just want to say good afternoon, good morning, good evening, all depending on where you are in the world right now. But I'm very happy to be joined here by Chris Thomas. For those who don't know, he's the co-founder of the Defensive Line, which is a youth mental health foundation that was launched by yourself and your wife, Martha, as well as your son Solomon Thomas, who's currently an
Yes.
NFL defensive lineman, who's playing for the Oakland Raiders. So as I mentioned earlier, we met not too long ago in DC, which was a great conference. I'm glad that we can now reconnect. Just your warmth and your authenticity, excuse me, and just your initiative, what you guys are doing is contagious, and
Mm,
we need more of in the world. So I'm very happy
thank
and
you.
appreciative that you're doing the work that
Appreciate
you're
that.
doing.
Thank you.
Um, so yeah, with September being Suicide Prevention Month, we are going to kick off the month with this Insta Live. So I want everyone to be checking in throughout the rest of the month. Everyone's going to be here having these conversations. But that's kind of my intro to you. So thank you for joining me, Chris, and also thank you
Absolutely.
to everyone that's joining us throughout this conversation. So I guess we'll start things off with the question we always
Okay.
like to begin with. I want to ask you, Chris, and I would want you to hear this question. How are you actually and truly doing right now?
Thank you. I like how you phrased that question. And I'm actually, today's been a very stressful day, to be honest.
Mm,
Not only at work, but also the fact that, the September is Suicide Prevention Month. And actually, Martha and I gave a presentation on suicide prevention at a high school here in Capel. And I always find those presentations enlightening and invigorating, but they're also exhausting. And
mm,
leading up to the presentation, there's a little bit of anxiety, a little bit of grief because we always think about the fact that we lost our daughter. But
mm.
I like how you phrased that question because one of the things we've learned since Ella's passing is that every day is a unique day. And we have a great friend out in Palo Alto. His name is Mike Murphy. And I love how he phrased it. He would always ask us, "How are you today?"
Mhm.
And because it's really important to understand every day is going to be different. There are days that we're flying high and it's a great day. And although we never forget losing Ella, there are days where it's a little easier to get along. It's easier to laugh. But there are days where, I definitely have to have a hotline to my therapist because I'm having a hard time getting through, or I have to sit and talk to Martha or Solomon or some really close friends. But today is a good day because I felt like we made an impact. I think today's a good day also because I'm looking forward to this new technology I'm on now with InstaLive, and I feel like now that I've expanded my horizons, and my hope is that you and I and the defensive line find a way to touch somebody and to make a difference. So today's a good day, despite the fact that I was a little anxious, a little stressed, but I'm smiling and my heart's beating in a good way.
Yeah, and that's exactly how the question is meant to be answered. I think so often in our culture that just becomes something you ask in passing. Oh, how are you doing? Oh, I'm doing fine. What about you? I'm doing great. Thanks. But it's important to take a second to stop and really just ask yourself, how am I doing today?
Yeah,
How have things affected me today? So I'm
yeah.
glad you answered that with the truth.
And also, to that point, Trey, it's also important that people listen. Because sometimes we say it in an obligatory, perfunctory way, how you doing? And just before the person can even answer, we're on to something different or
Mhm.
on to what we want to get done. It's important to truly listen to see how people are doing, because that time you're talking to that person, you may make a difference. And I mean, as grand as save their life, but also help them solve a problem and maybe even make a deeper, more meaningful connection. So it's also important to listen.
100%, 100%. I definitely echo all your sentiments that you just shared. But you kind of spoken a little bit about what you've done with your work with the defensive line and whatnot. I've been following your work. I've been following what you, Martha, and so have all done with this organization. But for those who aren't as familiar with the defensive line, can you just tell
Mhm.
us, like, for starters, how you got that name and kind of what your main mission is with this
Yes.
organization?
Yeah, thanks for asking it. Uh, the reason we picked the defensive line is because we feel that the line is where we want people to join so that people can help each other, so we can help make a difference. We can educate people, we can tell our stories, we can teach different techniques to help people connect and to help people understand there are resources and tools out there. We didn't call it Ella's story or Ella's foundation because it's bigger than Ella. It's about creating a world where no young person of color dies by suicide. And for leaders of young people of color, the defensive line is the mental health community that empowers life-saving connections. We really mean it's important to talk about life-saving connections, because when you have that connection, when you have that sort of union, you have the ability to connect with people and save lives, and also help understand where they're at and where they need to go. And we're really ordinary people trying to tell our story, trying to build connections and build in supportive environments where people can thrive and people can learn to work with each other. And although we're focusing in on people of color, we also know that this is important for everybody. But the reason why we picked people of color is because Ella was a person of color, but also recently the suicide rates have been rising amongst black males and black females, particularly the youth. And we got to find a way to really turn this pandemic around and to stop suicide of people, young people of color. So that's sort of a little bit of the defensive line. We do keep a little bit of a vulnerable as well as feisty sort of theme within the defensive line. We're trying to find a way to work with coaches, with teachers, with people who are really leading our youth so that they can help make a difference and provide and share some of the great technology and the great tools that exist with organizations like Mental Health America, AFSP, Providence, a variety of key mental health suicide prevention organizations, and to get that information into the hands of people when it's needed.
100%. And like you said, this is something that can help everyone, but you chose to highlight and focus on, persons of color for a specific reason. And that's something I even wanted to touch on because I don't know about your experience, but for me, being a black male, mental health and these
Mm,
words, anxiety and depression and things of this nature, these are things that sometimes are kind of shunned in our community,
yeah,
whether a lack of access, whether just the stigma that's and the discrimination that's associated with it and whatnot. These are things that, really affect us. And, I hate to call it
mm,
my favorite stat, but I guess the most alarming statistic that I've heard, which kind of really inspired me, encouraged me to join this industry, was that 4% of all psychologists are black and
yes,
2% of all psychiatrists are black. So
mm,
we're these, humans who have the
yeah,
same challenges that we want to address, but there's a lot of people that don't look like you and I in this
yes,
industry to lend a helping hand.
yes. And add to the fact that as you think about some of the dynamics, the racial, social dynamics that are going amongst people of color, whether it's on average, African Americans experience 5 microaggressions of racial tension a day. And you think about every day there are at least 3 people of color that are killed in a line of police officers. And so all that tension, all that buildup, we got to find a way to get them the right tools, the right access to mental health tools. But then, as I mentioned before, with the suicide rate amongst teenagers 13 to 17, as you think about amongst black females, it's up 182% between 2001 and 2017, and up 62% amongst black males. So this is really important that we give them the tools, the access, the training, and also give them the language to be able to say that they need help. And that's one of the most important pieces, because a lot of times within the African American community, we want to shy away from talking about mental health. We want to sort of pray it away. We just can't. Prayer is important, but you also have to have good mental health, good physical health. You got to have the right, access to mental care. Therapy is more than okay. It's sort of like, as I say, it's like brushing your teeth every day. To have a strong dental health, you got to brush your teeth every day. To have strong mental health, you have to practice it every day. So it's okay to talk about it. It's okay to get help. And so that's what you're talking about. What we're talking about is really finding a way to get to that point.
Exactly right. And I saw someone in the comments earlier saying it's okay not to be okay. And that kind of comes to everything that we're saying, is teaching people that it is okay. And the
Yes.
defensive line is doing that. But I want to know a little bit more about your specific role as co-founder. What does that entail? Like, what are some of the responsibilities that are on your plate? And what would you say is your favorite aspect of being the co-founder of the defensive line?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I've really been blessed with some excellent support from Ray Horst, who's our executive director, and Martha, my wife, who's the director of programming, and our son Solomon, who has donated countless dollars to help us get started. And we've had some great support amongst people who are on our board that have just provided the right vision and direction. One of the things I enjoy is sitting down, figuring out where are we going to be 3 years from now and 5 years from now, and who do we need to partner with to make a difference. So we've been working with the AFSP, with Providence, with the NFL, with the NBA, with Mental Health America, with Flawless Foundation. We're trying to find connections to help get the word out, to get the language out to people, to get the tools out to people, to open up the venue so folks understand, here's how you practice strong mental health. Here are the signs for suicide. Here are the tools and resources available to help deal with it. And here are some resources and some connections for people who are leading young people, and in particular young people of color. So I really enjoy putting together the programs, the vision to help make the programs come to life. Also working with the partners going to help us raise advocacy and awareness and resources and funding to drive this, because in order to save lives, it takes money. It takes, exposure, and to get the word out, whether it's via social media, whether it's through training in schools, middle school and high school. So I like collaborating with people. One of the things that's one of my key strengths is working in corporate America at the Procter & Gamble's and the Frito-Lay's of the world. I have these connections where I can reach out to these people to either give us a venue within their corporations or the people they're exposed to within middle and high schools, or through the nonprofit world, through the AFSPs of the world, to get us the right connections and the right landings. So that's what I really enjoy. I enjoy making a difference. I enjoy working with organizations to help drive legislation to make sure there's mental health parity, to make sure that we have the resources out there so folks understand here's the number to call if there's an issue, or to get the school systems to mandate and to prioritize suicide prevention training. Those are the things I really enjoy. And I also enjoy when Martha and I are able to go to a school and get the training, seeing these students and these leaders of young people eyes light up when they understand it's not that difficult to talk about it. And like you said before, it's okay to not be okay and to talk about it and to have a dialogue. So those are the things that I really, truly enjoy.
Yeah, and that's awesome. But everything I just heard sounds like you're really, really busy. So I'm sure this month in particular, you're really busy, being that Suicide Prevention Month. With everything you just named, is there anything in particular that you guys have in store that you might want to share with our followers that's going to happen this month?
Yeah, so one of the things we did straight away is we coordinated and worked with Born This Way Foundation to be a part of the Be Kind 21 program. So every day we're trying to make sure we emphasize that. We're working with Flawless Foundation on providing posts and educational information on an everyday basis. We're also working on September 14th in Las Vegas with Hope Means Nevada. And we're going to be doing Solomon's doing a partnership, a mentorship with a local school there, along with the Vegas City Hall. And we're going to have a presentation. We're going to have some training. Solomon's going to give a talk. We're going to teach kids to learn how to journal, how to practice self-care amongst those middle schoolers. And then we're also working with North Texas on North Texas Giving Day on September 23rd as well, so that we can raise awareness, raise funding and resources for suicide prevention. But then we're at the end of September working with the NFLPA, with a couple other nonprofits, the Hearst Foundation, Hayden Hearst Foundation, as well as with Dak Prescott's Faith Fight Finish organization, to talk about suicide prevention and how our three organizations are trying to get the word out there to get the right training and resources available to people. So those are some of the top line pieces we're going to be posting every day, every week on social media. So those are some of the key things we'll be working on in September.
Yeah, and I definitely encourage everyone that's on and listening to check out the work that they're doing and stay up to date on these things that are also impactful. And you just mentioned a lot of athletes, and we also see your son Solomon also looks like he's just joined us as well, joining the conversation. But between the athletes just named, and sports seems to be a huge part of you and your family's life. Solomon's playing football in the NFL right now. If I understand correctly, you play college sports as well.
Yep.
And myself, our followers know that sports is also a huge part of my life. I played football at Columbia University. You saw me speaking, and we touched on that as well. And right now is a time where all these, athletes are just, having these impactful, whether it's through interviews, whether it's through the Players Tribune, however, avenue they want, but they're speaking out about their experiences.
Yes.
Really for the first time, and maybe because of social media, it's as publicized as it was before, but we're having these star athletes speaking out about their challenges and letting everyone know, some of the things that they're going through. What do you think? What's your initial reaction to seeing Solomon, Dak Prescott, Hayden Hurst, Simone Biles, Naomi Osaka, Kevin Love, like all these huge athletes? What's your initial reaction to seeing them speak, and how impactful do you think it is to see them use their platform to make change?
Yeah, I think it's extremely beneficial. And one of my big shout outs is to Kevin Love. He was a key catalyst helping Solomon and us, break out our barrier and talk about suicide prevention. And, his article in the Players Tribune is marvelous. I think about him and the folks you mentioned, Brandon Marshalls of the world, DeMar DeRozan's. I mean, they're expressing they are full humans, that they have mental and physical abilities, and that they are just more than athletes. You think about the athletic realm, it's one of the only professions where when you fail, it's in public. And if I was at work and I made a mistake on a marketing presentation and I had to have 200,000 people see it at one time, I mean, I don't know how I would respond. But these guys, not only do they get beyond that, issue, but they're also talking about why it's important to talk about their full body, their full self, and to understand that life is a journey, and that you can't please everybody, and that you really have to find a way to focus on your whole self, and that your brain is an organ, and that as you go to fix your knee, you got to practice mental health every day so you maximize your brain and you maximize your full potential. And I just love the courage and their vulnerability and the fact that they are just being role models for people. And I always think about the Charles Barkley, I'm not a role model, kind of commercial back in the 80s, probably before you were even born. But I'm just glad these guys are talking about it, because they are true role models. I mean, what Simone Biles and Naomi Osaka did to say that they're going to practice their mental health and they're going to make sure that they're right, I think took a lot of courage. And I just think that they're going to open up the platform for others to do the same thing, and to open up and say, hey, I'm going to take care of myself. And that's really key, I think.
Yeah, and you said something that I definitely want to highlight. You saying that they're showing that they're human, which I think a lot of times we forget when we see these, athletes, and we add them on our fantasy teams, and we play with them in video games, and we forget that these are humans. You know what I mean? Who every day of their life, their lives are, like you said, put on the big screen for hundreds of thousands to millions of people, and just the immense pressure that goes along with that, in addition to just the day-to-day things that we all deal with. So I definitely want to appreciate you highlighting that, 'cause I think that's something we definitely need to talk about more, is that they are humans.
Absolutely.
And not only just that, I think everything we're discussing right now is very important, especially being during Suicide Prevention Month. So the first thing I want to highlight is, those that are watching us, I know you might have seen our founder, Janine, drop some resources in the chat. If any moment, you feel that you need to reach out and utilize the resources, we definitely encourage that. But Sullivan, I also want to ask you, because we kind of talked about Ella and her story a little bit. It's something you guys have been pretty open about, but how are you able to cope? This is, a process. This is a journey.
Yeah.
Like you said, some days are easier than others, but this is something that you're always going to have to kind of manage and navigate for the rest of your life. So
Yes.
what is it that you do to stay healthy and to, stay regulated throughout this process?
Yeah, I try to make sure a couple things. One is I take each day one day at a time. And I really find a way to make sure I'm thankful and grateful for the people in my life, whether it's Martha, whether it's Ray or Solomon, whether it's the connections I make with people like yourself or AFSP, and just value those connections. And then use those connections to help serve others. One of the things that I loved about Ella was she was always trying to help other people out, sometimes to her detriment because she burned the candle at both ends of the wick. But one of the things I've learned from this tragedy is to make it turn into a purpose, to turn it into a useful tool to help others. And so every day I try to find a way to make a difference and get the right information out to save others' lives or to help provide the tools and resources to help others, help other people. Other thing I try to focus on is balance. Immediately after Ella took her life, I was in a dark place, and there were times I was trying to numb my pain with alcohol, and I realized that just is not the right way to go about it. I had to find the right balance and get back into self-care, exercising, meditation, journaling, therapy. And the other thing we talked earlier about, as being African American males, I had to open up, be vulnerable. I had to open up and say, it's okay for me to talk about my feelings. I don't need to be this, super Iron Man and just hold my stuff in. I had to open up and have a discussion with my therapist, with Martha, with people I respected, whether it was my pastor or whether it was my, former coaches. I just had to have that discussion and say it was okay. To not be okay, and really practice it, because a lot of people want to talk it, like it's a game, but you got to really play it, and you got to really do it so that you can really make sure you get the benefits out of opening up and talking and being real to yourself. So those are some of the things. And the last thing I'll say is the focus on family. Whether it's my immediate family, whether it's my brothers, my sisters, or just Ray's parents. I just find joy in being able to connect with them. And then as we cause of suicide prevention, we create new family members and to help them in their cause of helping save lives. So those are some of the things that I try to do on a regular and daily basis.
Yeah, and I definitely appreciate, I know everyone else does, appreciates you, sharing your story and being vulnerable and, truly turning a tragedy into a testimony, because, this is not something that you have to do, but you're allowing people to really to join your family and to feel your pain to a sense, and you're gonna help so many lives as a result of that. So, kind of another question on that topic of being in such a situation, there are others like you. And the first part you did was, like I said, allow people to come in and to kind of witness the way you're coping with this and whatnot. But is there any more general advice you have for someone that might be in a similar situation as you, whether they've lost a daughter, lost a friend, lost a loved one? Is there any other advice you'd give to them to handle and navigate the situation?
For the longest time after Ella's passing, I blamed myself and the shoulda, woulda, coulda. And that's a rabbit hole that you just really can't go down, and understand that there's never just one reason why someone takes their life, and that there's a great image that AFSP talks about, the warning signs, the moods, the behaviors, and elements. That I really would recommend people to look at that and keep that with them, because it helps you identify some of the signs that if someone's going through. And to your point earlier, having the discussion and having authentic discussion on, are you okay? How are you doing today? What's going on in your mind? And having those real thorough discussions, and to peel the onion back and just keep talking and keep, asking questions so that you really get to where people are at. So I think that authenticity, like we talked about earlier, and then the other thing is, I really think it's important to serve others and to practice self-care. Those are the real key things I think will help keep you balanced and focus on the right things and help you make sure that you're doing things bigger than yourself and making a difference in life.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I thank you for all your answers, like that, all your vulnerability and positivity throughout, such a situation still. You
Thanks.
find a way to smile, and I think that's something that's very
Thank
beautiful so
you.
that we all can learn to do more
Mm-hmm.
of. But my
Thanks.
last question for you, Chris, is, here at Flawless, we have this concept of a flawless world. It's kind of like an ideal world, a perfect world, a utopia, if you will.
Mm.
And for me, a flawless world is one where we're more compassionate and
Mm.
empathetic to everyone and all their needs, and just a place where we all love each other, and we're
Mm.
perfectly imperfect in harmony together. That's kind of my flawless world.
Yeah.
So, what would you say your flawless world is, and what's giving you
Mm.
hope that we're moving towards that flawless world?
Yeah, I love this question. I love this concept. I wish I had a prophetic answer, but all I can say is I just envision and hope for a world where we just accept each other for who we are, and that we find a way to stop the divisions and we find a way to connect with each other. Because when you connect with each other, there's this oxytocin that just permeates through our body, and we just start just getting connected. We start feeling and loving each other. We start just understanding that we're all human beings, and we reduce our anxiety and we reduce barriers and isolation. And that's what we're all about. We're all about connectivity at the defensive line and growth mindsets and hoping that we can make a better world. One of my favorite quotes is from MLK, where he said, everything that is done in this world is done by hope.
Hmm.
Everything that is done in this world is done by hope. And I think that's so powerful. And I think it means a lot, because when we hope for the better, when we hope for each other, when we hope for togetherness, it really makes this world a better place. And I think that's what we're all about. At the end of the day, when we're gone, we want to make sure we leave some type of legacy, and we want to leave, love and hope and energy. And that's really what it's all about, I think. So I love the question, and I wish I had more of a prophetic answer.
No, I loved your answer. Chris, you are someone that's giving me hope that we are moving towards that more flawless world. Just the way that you've, despite a dark time, you've come out with just so much shine and just like the limelight and just the positivity that it just emerges out of you. So I appreciate you for that. I
Oh, I
appreciate you for
appreciate
joining
you.
us. Definitely. I appreciate everyone that's joined us on our inaugural Suicide Prevention Month Insta Live. Make sure to join us again next week as we continue this conversation with Chris and I. And I also encourage everyone to check out the defensive line and all the great work that they're doing. But that's it for us today. And once again, I appreciate you for joining us, Chris.
Thank you very much, Trey, and everybody. And Flawless, thank you. Appreciate it. God bless.